Welcome back, everybody, to the Triad of the Force podcast, a podcast from Puerto Rican friends coming together to do deep dives into Star Wars and other nerd-related media. These are our special episodes where we talk about Skeleton Crew, each and every one, today focusing on episode 6, Zero Friends Again. But before we get into the episode, we want to welcome back to the channel great friend, Catrina Dennis from Podro Pascal. Welcome back to the Triad. So happy to have you and happy
Welcome
New Year.
back.
Yeah, great to see you, Nani and Gus. I'm really excited to be back, especially for this episode. The moment I found out which one it was, I was like, that's the one I want. Like, I told Gus immediately, that's the one I want. So
I remember there was an Instagram post, and I'm like, perfect, because we have opening there. It was meant to be. So so very very happy we could do this, and like everyone said, yeah, like Happy New Year, like to everybody. It's the first episode of Trial of the Force of 2025. So challenging 2024 behind us, but I mean, an equally challenging 2025 ahead. But hopefully, one filled with opportunities and joy. So we hope the best for everyone in this New Year's, and thank you for joining us in the past year in our journey through this crazy Star Wars world we live in, and we appreciate everyone that continues to join us now going into 2025, into the madness that the world is diving into.
Oh yeah.
But hey, at least we got Andor season 2, and we got a couple more episodes of Skeleton Crew. But before we get going to Skeleton Crew, Catrina, why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on with you? We've had you in the podcast a couple of times before, but it's been a minute, obviously, since you've been here. So like, what's going on with you? Let's catch up. Tell us and the audience what's going on with you.
Yeah, a bunch of really cool stuff. I'm in the process of writing my first novel, which is going to have a superhero Latina lead, which I'm really excited about.
Awesome.
Oh yeah, our podcast, Podro Pascal, is on the horizon. We're working on new episodes this month, so that'll be coming back. And I have a bunch of other projects that I can't talk about, but maybe you'll
find out about it. Those are the most exciting ones.
Yeah, like later this year or something like that.
Awesome. We're looking forward to that. And is 2025 the year of Pedro Pascal? I mean, because 2024 we saw Gladiator 2, obviously, but I'm not too sure on the timeline for Fantastic Four and The Mandalorian and Grogu. When are we going to see more Pedro Pascal?
I mean, I feel like he's going to be out at all of the award shows, because if you can bring a date to any award show, you just call him. But we do have a lot of like development toward those too, like you had mentioned. So I don't think he's going to be a stranger. Maybe he'll be at the Andor premiere.
Oh God!
Hey, no one's ever going to complain about having Pedro Pascal at a Star. But see, the problem with doing that, then people are going to be like, "Oh, is there going to be some kind of crossover? Is the Mandalorian going to show up in Andor?" Even though it doesn't make sense in the timeline because it'll be far too young. But then the whole boring conversation of the world between worlds. Anything's possible with the world between worlds, and Ahsoka just brought the Mandalorian into the Andor time. Too complicated, because Star Wars fans.
I think you just
never
like advocated for them like bringing him to the premiere now. Now it's just like, oh, it's going to cause chaos, and if I were Star Wars marketing, I'd be like, ooh, chaos.
Yeah, chaos is great.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what Swagman thrives on. So if it's a good idea,
Swagman is like chaotic good. So yeah.
Okay, good. Well then, Swagman, just hit us up, and we'll give you more chaotic ideas. But chaotic ideas notwithstanding, we had a we'll see what everyone thinks. I would say a non-chaotic episode of Skeleton Crew that helped a lot of character development that was much needed for one character in particular, which was the character I think we were all hoping for, and I think sets up the end game now for the conclusion of the series, because this is episode 6, so we only have two more episodes, which it's kind of insane to think of how fast the series has gone, even though like it's gone as fast as any other one, I guess. But when a series is only 8 episodes long, it's as short as it can be. But before we go into the meat and potatoes of this episode as a whole, Catrina, tell us, how have you been enjoying, or maybe not enjoying, Skeleton Crew thus far?
I really like it. I mean, here's the thing. Like, I think it's a really fun TV show. I think it's a Star Wars show for the whole family, which we really haven't had since, you know, Rebels, and there are themes in Rebels that are also just a little older than this one. So I think it's really cool on its own. I love pirates. I love pirate stories, and I've really enjoyed the literary nods throughout this season to, you know, Treasure Island and a lot of other major, like, legendary pirate stories. So I like it. It's fun. It's, you know,
it's been kind of a breath of fresh air, really.
This is the best Star Wars, because like I feel like people have been like there's been a lot of discussion of like, oh, this is the best Star Wars since insert your favorite Star Wars. Do you feel that way about Skeleton Crew so far?
I mean, no. I mean, this is not to say like it's not a good show. It's
exactly.
Just, If I were doing my personal ranking, it would not be first, but not because it's bad. You know,
right,
it's just I have another favorite, and I mean that's what's so great about this franchise is like there's always a different answer for what's best, especially when it comes to the shows, because now we have and will have hopefully so many. So I like that Star Trek or Star Wars and Star Trek are both franchises where there are a lot of entry points, you know? So Star Wars has a lot of those where no matter how old you are, how young you are, who you're watching with, you can find a place to jump in, and I think that's special. So yeah. And I love these kids. They're so cute.
Yeah.
I know. They are.
And I really appreciate your answer, because in many ways I feel like that was like a question I was doing about the show overall, to kind of like go back into how we feel about this episode in particular, because I feel like your answer about the show is how I feel about this episode in many ways. And that's why I'm very interested to have today's conversation, because I want to see y'all's perspective. So let's start with you, Nani. Like, what did you think about this episode in particular? Because we're coming off hot, right? From last week, the holiday episode, which, you know, with the big reveal of Captain Renaud and like the pirate treasure and everything. I feel like we all were very hyped about everything that happened in the last episode, and I feel like there's a lot of discourse happening about this episode as well. I don't want to like say in which direction it's going in, but I wanna hear your perspective of like how you reacted to this one after last week.
Okay. So I actually really like this episode. So sorry, I disagree with you, Goose, like completely. Sometimes you don't need to be on high the whole time. Like sometimes you need to take a breather after such an intense episode. Not to say that this episode wasn't intense in its own way, because I thought very much that it was. I mean, at some point throughout the episode, Josbando was like, why did they hit us with the crying episode like on New Year's, you know? Because it's an episode that made us cry and had us in a lot of tension about what was going to happen with KB. You know, I thought it was very tension packed more in an emotional way than, you know, in a hijinks ensuing kind of way as the previous one, where we didn't know like the booby traps and all these things. But this one was also very emotionally taxing. And Star Wars likes to kill characters a lot, you know, so I was really worried for KB there for a second. So all in all, I really thought it was a really great follow-up to last week's episode, and a great one to set up, you know, the last two episodes. So all in all, I was actually really happy with the episode. And, you know, that's like my general perspective on it.
Catrina, how about you? Before I dive into the spiciness.
Yeah, I'm on the exact same page Nani's on. I loved this episode. Like it's fun to spend time with characters and let them learn and develop. And you know, a lot of us have grown up with like, you know, Studio Ghibli movies or other movies where, you know, there's a moment where there's just silence and you focus on the character and just feel that emotion off of them. And I think that was something like a piece of depth that was missing so far. You know, you learn more about why John is so successful, because he knows how to talk to people. He knows how to manipulate people. And then you spend time with the kids and you learn more about not just KB, but like how Fern has treated people. And also, you also get a glean of why, you know, from everything we know about Fern and how she's acting in this episode. Like, it's such a great episode for the girls all together.
Yeah.
And And I just love I love the little pirate intervals where it's like there's a space shanty in it. Like how can you how can you hate an episode with a space shanty? I need 12 more of those. I need an album. So I'm I love this episode. Like it is easily outside of the premiere, like my favorite so far. And I kind of yeah, I kind of came in knowing that like I would have fun either way, whether this episode was great or not, because Bryce Dallas Howard has like
directed, and she's so good.
Every single episode she's directed of a Star Wars show has been a hit. So yeah, so I loved it.
Yeah, it was interesting, and maybe my perspective comes off of traveling during the holiday, because full disclosure, the 31st I was traveling from Puerto Rico back to Chicago, and it was a 5-hour flight, and the flight was fine, but I didn't sleep. I didn't sleep a single a minute of the flight. So thankfully, I got to catch up on some movies. I saw The Wild Robot, which was amazing. A Different Man, which was also excellent film. So I don't know, maybe the whole traveling thing, and then when I land,
kind of messed with you a little bit.
Probably, and then logging back into the internet and then seeing everyone's reaction on Instagram, being like, "Oh, Bryce Dallas Howard, don't miss that episode, was like the best of the season." I was like, "Holy crap!" I mean, because if this episode is the best, and like it's I don't know, like the hype that I saw from everyone from the episode, kind of like and the traveling, kind of like created some expectations in my mind about, which is the problem I think with.
You shot yourself in the foot with that one.
Exactly. When you generate your expectations around like something else instead of like coming in with it as a blank slate, you could only disappoint yourself. So in many ways, it's my own fault, right?
That's what happened.
But in watching the episode, I thought it was good. I'm not gonna say that it was a bad episode, and that's not my spicy take. My spicy take is not that it was bad, because I think it was a good episode. I just don't think it was a great episode. And I think that good is good, but and not everything has to be great, because if everything were great, nothing would be, right. But I think that it's definitely an important episode for like what it needed to do, because it's that pivot point, right? It's the elbow right now that the show needs to do, heading from the journey that the characters are going to as we return to Atten. It kind of establishes that now the pirates are going to Atten, because Jot and SN33 have the coordinates, so he's kind of promising the same promise that he gave them at the beginning of the season with like the new treasure, even though he's going to realize that same as the beginning, the treasure in riches is empty, and the real treasure is your family or found family. But we'll get to that at the end. And then the kids are also on their way back, so it's like that confrontation, like all the parties, and where the kids, I think, have had each episode for all of them to shine. Obviously, this was KB's moment to kind of have her opportunity to be more relatable and personable and have her journey to overcome, but also for all of them to kind of break up and actually become a team finally, because they've all been functioning together but independently. And this is the first episode where they're finally a crew, right? They're actually the skeleton crew of the Onyx Cinder finally. And so it was definitely important for all of those things to happen. But for me, the episode just didn't just completely hit on all the cylinders, because one of the big things that, at least for me, I kind of disconnected with a little bit was the KB and Vern dynamic, because it was important that they had their fallout so they can reconcile, but I feel that it would have been more powerful if Vern had actually like failed in kind of rescuing the ship by climbing and everything. And it was strange, because, and correct me if your guys' perspective on KB's and Vern's journey on this was the same. I mean, different from like how I perceived it, but in many ways, like Vern was right in like going into climbing to go get the ship, and KB was wrong in following Kh'ymm and with the trash crabs or whatever the hell they were called. And for me, it would have been cathartic. For me, it would have been more cathartic for KB to be right, to like do the thing that was like right for her at the time, and Vern to like fail trying to do the heroic thing. So that was the part that I kind of felt disconnected. The whole relationship plot between them, and like how they developed as characters to meet each other, but I think that's the key piece that for me made the episode like not feel as powerful as it could have
Mm-hmm.
been. But I want to put it back to you guys, since like you resonated with the episodes a little bit more and kind of react to like how I maybe disconnected with it a little bit. Now you like how do you feel about some of
So
those
I
things?
don't see it as you do, like at all. I there has you can tell that KB's probably been more silent
Hmm.
than she would have wanted to be throughout all these episodes, like
Mhm.
letting have Fern have like that first and last word. But in this one, where she knew that her own life was in danger, she like finally spoke up and talked about her true feelings about how Fern doesn't really acknowledge their differences and all these things. So that falling out, I think, was very necessary, and it showed a very vulnerable side to KB, who we would maybe think she's more like robotic because she doesn't speak as much. We can't see her
Hmm.
eyes and all these things, but we show that she is a whole entire person, and that she does have her own vulnerabilities, even though she's a total badass as well.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't think Fern, we needed her to fail necessarily. I think she realized as she's doing the climb with Neel that what KB was saying was right. That you can't just assume that because you can do something, other people can do it the same way.
Hmm.
Which goes a lot to what Catrina was saying. That it's how she was raised. She was raised to always be the best and have to
Mhm.
be number one, and prove to her mother that she is always the best. So it's not strange for her to think that because she is the best and she has to push herself to do that, she can push other people to do it too. But some people have specific, physical limitations or other limitations
Hmm.
that need to be acknowledged. I mean, you
Mhm.
can't just assume that everybody's the same. We are all individually, diverse, and it needs to be acknowledged, those differences. So I think she understood that with Neel, and we see it when she decides to use the rope to kind of help him along. So I think in that moment she realizes, and we don't need a huge conversation to do it. I think she just realized it, and as soon as she saw KB again, she was just happy to see her friend again and kind of acknowledge that KB was right. And on the other side, well, they fail, but I think KB just needed like a moment away from Fern to like think about everything that was going on and let herself be vulnerable to somebody else and realize that even if she thinks she's broken, she isn't. And Wim immediately says, I mean, you're not going to have no friends again. If you want to stay in a fight with Fern, you can, but you can be friends with me and Neel. And she just like smiles and then goes into the shutdown, horrible tension moment that, broke my heart. But
Hmm.
I thought it was really well done, honestly. And then that moment when they see each other again, there's no hesitation in hugging and kind of, making the peace. It made me like tear up. And I thought it was just like really, really great, honestly. So
I wish I did like.
I'm sad it didn't resonate with you, but I thought it had me and Josbando like crying, like, oh my god,
Mhm.
why are they doing this to me? This is too intense.
Which I did like that scene specifically about Wim talking
Mhm.
to KB, because I thought it was funny in a lot of ways, because I was just like, he's just like, oh, you can just be friends with me and Neel, even though like Neel and him separated, it's just like, oh, I'm gonna
Yeah,
go and do this other thing, but it's like, yeah, we separated, but we're still friends, and it's kind of
and it's so like
like,
sincere and just beautiful
yeah, it's
and,
just
and
like, oh,
great.
just because we like had like our argument and he's doing the other thing with Vern doesn't mean that like we're not
Yeah,
friends. So I thought that was a really sweet moment of like that, youthful naivete
yeah.
about friendship, which we all could use a lot more of, to be honest. But anyway,
Mhm.
Katrina, your reaction to my lack of connection to this moment.
Grow a
I
heart,
think
Goose.
yeah, I mean, I will second everything Nani said, and I also thought that like this episode was this Fern and KB are the classic introvert extrovert dynamic.
Yeah.
You saw
Hmm.
like if you've seen like Peppermint Patty and what's her face? I don't know. Remember her name is like Helga and Phoebe from Hey Arnold. Like
Mhm.
they've all had moments like this in their character arcs where there's one character who is the louder one, but they're also someone who is very strong and inherently so, and and that's the only way they know how to survive. Whereas like the quieter one leads a radically different life and just has this one person to rely
Hmm.
on because they don't think that they can make any other friends. So
Yeah.
so this story for me was like a classic girls friendship story. there are a lot of ways we as women are taught to survive and to change and mold ourselves. And when you you encounter a friend and a best friend who is so radically different from you, I think that the moment that you see in this show resonates with a lot of people who have had those kinds of dynamics. And I agree that, like, I don't think anybody needed to. I mean, like, it's fine that they failed, because their lesson wasn't necessarily in the failure. It was in the way that they thought, and they thought about each other, and the empathy that they had to feel. So yeah, it's just Fern had to learn to adapt to other people in order to become a stronger leader and a better friend. So,
Which when you were saying that, it just reminded me a little bit of like other friendship driven stories. Like specifically, I was thinking of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, right? Where Ferris kind of and I forgot what's his friend's name? I always forget.
Oh, you caught me. Yeah, you got me. I'm usually really good at this.
Damn. Ferris friend. Let's do a quick internet. Ferris Bueller friend. Oh my god, I feel terrible. Cameron. There we go.
Cameron.
With Cameron, because it's kind of like that in that same relationship, right? Where Ferris is the extroverted one, and Cameron's the introverted one. It has like all these different, situations about like how that make him the way they are. But I think it's interesting to then compare it to that, because in that type of story, though, Ferris kind of forces him to be something else. It's like, stop being that way. You have to be this other way, because only my level is kind of like the best one. Like, there's never that moment of like meeting each other where each one of them is at. So I think, and maybe it's the times, like we're a little more conscious about meeting each other where we're at, as opposed to kind of you have to improve, and I use that in parentheses, because improving is very different for everybody, because improvement can mean something else for anybody in a given situation. And I think that what is happening with this episode specifically is a lot healthier, right? Because it's not about well, we have to take our separate ways, or you have to change for me, or or I have to change for you. It's about like, no, we just have to just understand that maybe our journey is at a point where we're at different places, and we can continue this journey and acknowledge that we have to adapt to each other, as opposed to you to me or me to you. It's like to each other at equal places, which I think is the healthy dynamic that I think we could all learn a little bit more of, especially going into 2025.
Yeah,
as a New Year's resolution. So maybe that was the gift that Bryce Dallas Howard was giving us on that one.
But aside that empathy.
We definitely always need more empathy. But aside from the fact that it was really emotional and impactful, I thought it was also really fun. I mean, you start off with the slide, which is so Goonies, and we were wondering, what was this actually under that booby trap? And I was like, how horrible is their death scenario going to be now? And it's like, oh, okay, you can go out of the chute, and then you're left to die alone in the snow. But I mean, the trash crabs I thought were really cute, except obviously the large mama, terrifying one at the end. And when they realize that they've become food, and the whole sequence with them just, jumping onto the crates that are carrying the ship, and the ship crashing, and then like the trash compactor almost eating them, and then they happen them to like self-destruct the hull so they can escape. And that's like such a beautiful scene where it just like peels off like a snake skin, and you see like the ship, what it really looks like, and it's not this trash heap that everybody thinks it is. It is the onyx cinder and all these things. So and like you said, that moment at the end where everybody just decides, like, you're gonna fly the plane, you're gonna fly the ship, I'm gonna try to shoot the thing off, I'll do the controls. I mean, and then everybody like relying on each other as a crew for the first time, and them being able to pull it off as these kids who had never left their planet, and now they're on their way back, which obviously that juxtaposed with Jod, who, like you said, is so good at manipulating a crowd. Like, they went in one conversation from threatening his execution to, okay, we'll go. We'll still execute you, fail again. But the way he just convinced everybody, and like preying on their emotions and their needs, and just adding that
instincts,
little song and everything, like adding in the myth of the legend of the pirate like treasure that he already found without them. It was kind of crazy. I wonder what's gonna happen when he is confronted by the kids, and everything that had happened while he was with them, and him like reverting to this like brutal character that he was like at the beginning.
Yeah,
because we did start to see some cracks in his facade, and then he kind of like reverted. He went 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, kind of thing. So I'm really curious to see what's going to happen when he's like confronted with them and the destruction that these pirates are going to bring to this idyllic home that they grew up in. So I don't know.
And Jod and SM33 once again like had one of the funniest bits in the episode, like at the beginning when they're coming out of the sewer or whatever the hell, they get to the
laced with jewels,
and then like he said, SM33 attack, and then aye captain, and it just comes out to attack everyone, immediately shut down. Just like that's perfect humor. Like just it's if there's one thing I think that Skeleton Crew has excelled at is the humor. I feel sometimes. I mean, sometimes, yeah. Let's not go too much into detail. Sometimes Star Wars, I feel like, struggles with the in-universe humor and like how it's conveyed to us. But I feel Skeleton Crew specifically has kind of nailed it because the humor is just like seamless and always hits, always hits perfectly. And I think that scene with SM33 was just hilarious. And I'm just curious to see like now what else is there for SM33 to do, since like he didn't show up basically in all of this episode except for that one scene. So now he's at the cargo bay, I guess, of Brutus's ship. But I don't know. We'll see. I'm sure that he has more secrets to tell us about Captain Renaud in the coming episodes. But I did want to talk more about what you were talking about, Nani, about the kids as they were escaping the maw of the destroyer recycling droid or whatever the hell that thing was, because it reminded me a lot of Toy Story 3.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
The scene when all the toys are going into the incinerator and they're all holding hands and about to die, and I was just like,
don't make me cry again.
I was like, holy crap, this is like, I mean, that Star Wars, Lucasfilm, and Disney isn't going to kill these children, but holy crap, like the way that whole sequence played out, you were like, it was a nail biter. I'm like, you kids don't have time. You got to get out. It was like Toy Story. I knew the toys weren't gonna die, but I was at the edge of my seat, and it was a testament to, one, the writing of everyone involved in the show, two, to obviously Bryce Dallas Howard's directing to get the tension that the scene required, but then also those kids' performances, because that's it's not easy for a child actor to act, and much less in a impactful and emotional scenes as those are. So credit to the kids for like doing as much as they have done and did in that particular scene. But Catrina, I wanted to hear more of your thoughts about that, of like how the kids get back together to finally function as a crew, and then like how they're in their Toy Story 3 moment. So why don't you react a little bit more to that particular scene?
I love that we all saw that as Toy Story 3, because the moment I saw that big old chopper, I was in the lava going in, like I messaged my partner and I was like, Toy Story 3 moment. And so like I'm glad we're all on the same page there. It was fantastic. But I will go back to the kids acting, because that's, I think, what makes this episode so high ranking on my list. Because they're not only are they like naturally talented, but it also shows the level of like diversity in Bryce Dallas Howard's directing. She's gone and done several different genres within the matter of the Star Wars episodes that she has, and working with kids and getting that performance out of them takes a really special kind of director. So I mean, everyone was just like all 5 stars all around for me. I thought the trash crabs were incredible, and I like like I said, the quieter moments between the kids where they just kind of got to know each other a little bit more, and like you said, come together at the end as a crew, because now they all kind of understand each other's strengths and weaknesses, and now they can kind of work together. And now that it's the stakes are also a lot higher now that the Onyx Cinder is not a giant trash heap. Like, it looks like the Onyx Cinder, and Jod has told those pirates that the Onyx Cinder is out there. So they're moving targets now. And I'm interested in seeing like how that gets handled, if the adults are ever going to step in and be anything but completely useless. Like,
because we saw a hint that they were actually, lobbying together to actually do something. But since we haven't seen anything from them in recent episodes, we have no idea how far along they got on that route. And I would also very much like to see like adults not being useless. But going back to the kids acting, Catrina, like I want to talk about that scene where KB almost has the shutdown, and everything about that. I think that was like so intense. So I want to see how you felt about it, like all the emotion that was going through that, and the fact that Kh'ymm didn't really know that her life was in danger. He just thought it was like, it's like something maybe not permanent, but it totally was. So what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I think that, like I said, that subtle, quiet acting was incredible. And it's another one of those scenes where like the stakes are incredibly high, but you don't see like action or anything like that. It's tension. And I really think that Catrina Crater is the person who plays, or the girl who plays KB, like that performance of hers, like portraying this character who is ultimately dying and kind of going through her regrets and the things she was afraid of at that age, like that's an incredible like moment all on their own. Like that was great. But also having Kh'ymm there to kind of like balance out that seriousness, and start to understand a little bit more about how, because like Fern wasn't the only one to learn a lesson this episode. Kh'ymm was also paying attention in there and ultimately like helping KB save her own life. And I think he learned a lot more about how different people live, even in like his very, closed off region of space. So I really I mean, these kids really just knocked it out of the park this episode.
I know they've.
If we even like with Fern, like you like you mentioned, like all of her major character moments are like quiet or subtle or tense. She doesn't outright say, I have learned this or something like that, but you see this arc on her face basically throughout the entire episode where she has this like change of heart and change in perspective, and it affects her in like a huge way. So just all around amazing.
Yeah, it's insane. You're right. Like you can see in her face, like when she has those moments of realization, it's just like it's all over, and the way that she stands and everything. I mean, these kids have really been blowing my mind. Like they have really knocked it out of the park, and it's been a roller coaster of the amount of just stuff that they've been able to pull off in just 6 episodes, and how they started in this like, suburbs of Star Wars, and then are now just like all the planets that they've been to, and kind of just like keeping up with pirates. It's insane. It's insane. Like that has to be such a giant culture shock, and their kids on top of it. And now they're all on their own, because that's, they had Jod at some point who was like, this father figure to them. Even though they didn't fully trust him, they were slowly starting to, and at least they had SM-33 as well. And now they just have each other, and it has to be absolutely terrifying, but they're totally showing up for it. So it's been great, I think.
Nothing much more to add to that, except that like now there are obviously like lots of questions have been answered, but thankfully a lot of others have been posed by the previous episode, and obviously this one into like the end game of the last 2 episodes that we're heading into. So as always, we like to do responsible speculation, and we've done a lot. We've done a lot this whole season of Skeleton Crew, and we've been, I think, mostly wrong about everything, but that's fine because it's about
we're usually wrong.
In fact, it's better to be wrong, because then you're surprised and have more fun with it. But it's still fun, right, to speculate and like see what ideas turn into what. So Obviously, Jod had like his big moment in which he convinces the pirates not to kill him and then go to Atten to find the mint and take it for themselves. We have the reveal that the kids take repossession of the Onyx Cinder, and the Onyx Cinder apparently is this sweet, sweet chip underneath the crusty exterior, which I don't know if that's a kind of a retrofit that the Captain Renaud did afterwards, so it looks crusty and people are just afraid of it. But it was always a pleasure cruise. I don't know, but but we have those two pieces and two groups of people that are now heading back to Atten because KB obviously tells at the beginning that she has the coordinates in her memory. So Catrina, what do you expect to see either in the next episode or the next two episodes based on everything that we know so far?
So I think the next episode is going to be like mainly a chase, I would say, storyline. Like, I think that we're going to see those pirates start to close in. We're going to have the parents, maybe, hopefully, like I mentioned earlier, we want them a little bit more active. So working on finding their way through the barrier, locating the kids. Just that, I mean, it's going to be another one of those connective episodes because I feel like the finale is going to be something big. It has to close up a lot of storylines. So I think we're gonna see some more development, and we're gonna get to see the kids like in action as a crew, maintaining this like legendary pirate ship. So cool.
Right.
Nani, do you have any theories going forward about what we might or might not see?
I still have the question of SM-33 in the back of my mind because now, I mean, they need him because he's the one that has the coordinates to Atten. So they have to wake him up at some point. And what's gonna happen in terms of that Jod is not the captain anymore, So I don't know if there's gonna be a challenge for Brutus to actually take SM-33 or something, but I feel like once they get back together with the kids, I think SM-33 is gonna go back to being on their side because I feel like he regretted that change in leadership a lot, and so far with Jod, things have not panned out very well for him. So I feel like we're gonna see some of that, and I hope we do get to see some of that, and I hope that like you were saying, Catrina, the parents are actually actively doing something. And we know from that other planet that was one of the treasure planets that they do have like these big guns that they can use to protect themselves. So something around those lines, because, we are getting this huge crew of very cutthroat pirates coming in to a place that is just, it's basically Pleasantville in space. So how they're going to deal with that kind of invasion, and then maybe Jod realizing, oh no, I brought this kind of destruction to this kid's planet. It's not just like a vault or a bank that I'm stealing. It's a planet full of families, and I think that might make him second guess his actions. So we'll see. Osbando just wants him to be a Sith, and like so we'll see.
So, but you're saying that that's a Chekhov's gun, basically. That the school from, what was it, 2 episodes ago that had like the gun at the top of the school.
Yeah.
That the schools in Atten also have those guns.
Yeah.
Okay, I vibe. That makes sense because then it's just like, why show that in that episode when they never used it? That's a good setup because then Neel or Kh'ymm or whoever the hell it was shown to can be like,
Neel's
side,
it's like, wait, there's defense systems here somewhere.
I dig it. I dig it. I can definitely see that one happening. I'm just wondering, like what the sequencing now is going to be. Like if the kids will arrive first, if pirates arrive first, if we're gonna
they arrive at the same time.
They arrive at the same time, or if it's like in different episodes, but I think the big question is the parents, right? Because we did spend a little bit of time with them and see that they were actually being active in trying to get the kids back, but that's
subvert the system. But
that's been taken back down a notch again, and it would be kind of good to see that storyline be brought back in, so that it doesn't feel, because I just don't want the finale to feel rushed and then have like all the different plot elements be like, okay, never mind, let's just tie everything together and like,
because it's a lot to do in 2 episodes.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of my
that's
own
the problem
thing, right?
sometimes, that they don't stick the landing sometimes in these shows because they try to pack so much stuff in that then at the end you're like, wait, That's it. That's how it ends. Okay.
Right.
But so far, they've done a really good job with the pacing. So I'm going to be cautiously optimistic about what we're getting in these last 2 episodes.
Like, I before I was on the team that the supervisor is Captain Renaud, and I'm still on that team right now. Now my wild theory about it is going to be, well, if we set up Jod having a lightsaber, it means that we have to have some kind of lightsaber fight, because you're not gonna have a lightsaber to not have an opponent to wield it against. So I wonder now if if like the supervisor also, I don't know if there's gonna be a lightsaber at the supervisor's tower or something like that to kind of culminate that somehow and either show how incapable Jot is
With the
wielding
lightsaber.
a lightsaber. But I don't know. I think this is the interesting part of the show right now, is to see how the Force and Jedi stuff fit into it, because it's been the fun surprise of it, right? It's just like it's a show that it doesn't have any of it, but the moment that Jod does anything,
something happens.
It throws us into a whirlwind.
Or quotes Qui-Gon Jinn,
Exactly. It's just like, is he a Jedi? Is he a Sith? Or last episode when we were talking, could he be an Inquisitor or something like that, or a failed Inquisitor or something? I think that's gonna be like the interesting part, right? Because obviously the pirates, when they not kidnap him because he's not a kid, when they nap him, take away the lightsaber. So now it's just like, how is that Chekhov's gun again going to come into play into the finale? But right now, like I'm gonna stop turning my brain on for like all these speculations to just enjoy the ride. It's gonna be, I think, a lot of time for thinking too much in 2025, and I think right now is the time to just ease into the ride, at least for the time being. But I don't know. Did anyone else have like anything else that they wanted to add about this episode before we wrap up for the day?
I was very excited to hear Gunter talk more, because Jaleel White finally gets to put his Urkel voice to use again with this character.
I know, it was kind of hilarious. I was like, is he gonna actually speak or just stand there every episode?
Yeah, he got to do a lot more this episode, which I really enjoyed. And and I'm also glad that we have like a band of familiar faces now within the pirates. I think that also adds to that, again, those subtle stakes. Like, now we're going to see like everyone's specialties. Pocket is still alive. I don't even know who got burned in the acid, because everybody I was paying attention to is still here. So I'm excited to see what happens with these pirates, like Brutus and everyone. So
Yeah, I was like, last time I was theorizing that Pocket was going to be the one to rescue the kids. Completely wrong about that one. So we'll see what further adventures Pocket's going to have with the rest of the team, if any, or maybe this is like the last we see of her, at least in this iteration of her character. But anyway, I don't know if that's it. I think Katrina, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, this has been like a fantastic discussion of a fantastic episode. Even though like I still think I need to maybe watch it again to start seeing everything that you guys have.
Because you definitely missed something that me and Katrina loved about this.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's why. I think that's why these conversations are important, to kind of see, everyone
new
else's perspectives and see things from different points of view, so we can connect with media in different ways than we otherwise might not have. So thank you so much for joining us, especially during the new year. But before we sign off, why don't you tell everyone what you're up to, where they can find you, what your socials are, so that people can be able to follow you easier.
You can find me anywhere on social media. If you look for Katrina, that's OHCATRINA. My YouTube channel is under the same name, and there's going to be new stuff coming up this year. And look out for new episodes of Podro Pascal on the near horizon.
Perfect. And as usual, we will be leaving links down in the description below, just to make it even easier for people to find you, because you're a great friend and an amazing creator too. So we definitely encourage everyone that has not yet done so to hurry and follow and subscribe to all of your channels because you are amazing as a person and your content is also amazing. So please, if you haven't, go follow Catrina.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me on. It's always really nice to talk to you too, and yeah, I'm really excited for more Skeleton Crew.
Yeah, I know. I am really excited too, and I'm really glad that we got to talk to you today. It's it's the first day of the year, and we are gonna let you go. So because everybody has to go back to work tomorrow, but oh well. So thank you so much, Catrina, for joining the Triad. It was such a great conversation. Remember, everybody, to like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let us know what you're thinking about Skeleton Crew so far. If you have any theories about what we're going to get to see in this last final episodes, and convince Goose that he doesn't have a heart and this episode was amazing. Until next time, may the force be with you.